Yo, what's good, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prodigy channel. And in this video, I'm going to give you my top starts of the week for week 12 of the 2022 fantasy football season. I'm recording this on Saturday, November 26th. I wanted to get this video out before the Thanksgiving games, but I was traveling and I had other stuff to do, so I just could not get it done. The good part about that is that since I did not put this video out before Thanksgiving, you do not have to listen to me tell you to play Dawson Knox, who had himself a bad game on Thanksgiving. But the bad part is I was also going to make Dalton, Schultz, and TJ Hockenson starts of the week, and they both had really good games for fantasy, got in the end zone. So I'm going to say that in my heart, we were right about Dalton Schultz and TJ Hockenson for Thanksgiving. I wish I could have got this video out earlier, but we're still going to have some other good starts of the week for week 12. All right, let's get right into our quarterback starts of the week. I'm going to start with Justin Herbert of the LA Chargers. He's had an up and down season, but he is starting to get his weapons back from injury. And in week 12, he has a nice matchup with the Arizona Cardinals defense. So I think he is a solid start for week 12. Next up at the quarterback, we have Geno Smith, quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks. No one expected him to be as good as he has been this season. At the start of the year, we thought maybe it was a fluke, but he has proven to be a locked-in, top-tier quarterback. Obviously not a Mahomes, Jalen Hurts level guy, but someone you can start with a decent amount of confidence that he's going to have a safe floor most weeks. And he has had a couple games where he has shown some big upside. Whoa. I don't know what that ad is, but we're going to cover that up. Anyways, week 12, he gets the Raiders. That's arguably the best matchup in all of fantasy for quarterbacks. So I think that there was some potential for some rain. Last I heard, it's not going to be too bad. So monitor the weather. If it's like a tsunami, or a hurricane, obviously maybe temper your expectations, but he's been good. It's a great matchup. He has the weapons that we're going to talk about later in this video, so I would start him with confidence in week 12. All right, now we're going to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, quarterback of the 49ers. I was going to make him a start of the week last week, but I decided, you know what? I don't know how I feel about it. We'll see. I'm going to hold off. And he goes out and throws 4 touchdowns. Now, keep in mind, this is the defense that Justin Herbert, with all those weapons coming back now, gets to play. So that's why I like Herbert. But in week 11, Jimmy Garoppolo had 4 touchdown passes. And I'm just going to bring him up in week 12 against the Saints, because the Saints actually are not a horrible matchup like they used to be. And Jimmy G is surrounded by weapons with Debo, McCaffrey, Ayuk, Kittle. He doesn't have to do a whole lot to have a good fantasy day, because all those guys can get yards after the catch production, get some yardage, get in the end zone, hopefully. So he's not a top tier play, but he's sort of a low end quarterback 1, high quarterback 2 play. And I just want to bring him up to put him on the radar as someone that most weeks you can start. Since he's taken over as the starter, as you can see, he's been pretty solid for fantasy. You know, not a world beater, but in week 12, I think you can do worse than starting Jimmy Garoppolo. And I don't know what's going on with these ads, but we're here to talk about football. So, they went away. Oh, and she's back. What are we doing here? Now we're going to move on to running back, where I have a few guys to talk about. The first one, we're going to keep it short and sweet. It's Kenneth Walker, running back of the Seattle Seahawks. He's been great all year. He's somewhat involved in the passing game. So even when he's shut down in the run like he was in week 10, he saw 8 targets, caught 6 for 55. So he has a nice solid floor. He's super important to the offense. And in week 12, I want to pick on this Raiders defense. It is possible that they attack them a little bit more through the air, but the Seattle Seahawks, I think, are going to try to at least run the ball a decent amount in this game. And he's talented. The matchup doesn't scare me. So he is basically a must start for week 12. All right, so now I'm going to try to go a few tiers below the Ken Walkers of the world, because the point of this video is to be helpful and give you some guys that maybe you don't think about starting if you're in a pinch or something. So we're going to talk about Jeff Wilson Jr., running back of the Miami Dolphins. He has been amazing since he has come over to the Dolphins. The last 2 weeks, he's been a top 10 running back. And in week 12, he gets the Houston Texans, which is the best matchup for running backs in all of fantasy football. He's very familiar with the scheme, with their head coach coming over from the 49ers, Jeff Wilson also coming over from the 49ers. So he's been thrown in there and used a lot. I think he's a good bet to score a touchdown. He should see plenty of volume, because one thing about the Houston Texans is that when teams play against them, they usually are up early and they can just run the ball the whole game. So I think Jeff Wilson is a running back 1 play. It's weird to say, but I think he has that potential. Also important to note is that Raheem Mostert is listed as doubtful for this game. So normally this is a nice little committee where you could probably play Mostert and Jeff Wilson. But if Mostert is out, I think Jeff Wilson is, I mean, there's very few players I would play over Jeff Wilson with the backfield to himself in the best possible matchup. So unless you have like just an unbelievable backfield, you're probably going to be starting Jeff Wilson. And now we're going to move even a little bit more further down this running back totem pole. And we're going to go with Latavius Murray. So Chase Edmonds was put on injured reserve. The Broncos also just released Melvin Gordon. So for Denver, Latavius Murray is kind of the top guy right now. And in week 12, he gets a great matchup with the Carolina Panthers. In years past, they have had a good run defense, but lately they just cannot seem to stop anybody. I don't expect this to be a high-scoring game, so I don't think this is really a ceiling play. But if you're dealing with injuries, I think Latavius Murray is someone that will see volume, and he's a good bet to get in the end zone. So he's sort of like a flex play, maybe a running back 2 if you're dealing with some sort of injury. So I think he's someone that you can play in a pinch. Next up, we're going to talk about Rachaad White. Now, this is someone who, if you were smart, you've been stashing him on your bench in your leagues. I had him stashed in 2 leagues at various points in the season, but with bye weeks and injuries, I did have to release him. And in both of those leagues, he was picked up and held onto. And it's looking like that stash play is going to pay off, at least for this week, because it was already looking like he was going to take over a little bit more of that backfield. And it was going to be kind of a committee with Leonard Fournette. But as of this recording, Leonard Fournette, it's looking like he's not going to play. And in week 12, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are taking on the Cleveland Browns, and that is a great matchup for running backs. Rachaad White has proven that he has some ability with limited touches. And even week 10, with Fournette there, he saw 22 carries, turned into 105 on the ground. Didn't get in the end zone, didn't see any targets, but with no Fournette, the passing work should go at least a little bit to Rachaad White, I would think. So I think he's a nice safe play just with Fournette not playing and with the matchup. And if the offense is clicking, he might just win your week for you. So I would try to get him in your lineups if you could. And then I'm going to talk about one more running back just because I just want to bring up Antonio Gibson. You might have forgotten about him just because he had a rocky start to the season where it seemed like he lost his job to Brian Robinson. But lately, the last couple weeks, he's kind of been taking a hold of that backfield a little bit more. Last week, in a great matchup, 18 for 72 on the ground. And he saw 3 targets, caught 3 of them. As you can see, he's used in the air every single game, even when he's in the doghouse. Other than week 3, he's had at least 3 targets every single game other than that 1 week. So in this game against the Atlanta Falcons, that's a great matchup for running backs as well. I think he is a nice, solid start. I do think Brian Robinson will also be involved to an extent, but it's looking like Gibson might be the better play at this point. So again, not like a world beater, not a Eckler, McCaffrey level play, but I think that he's someone that should see solid volume in a good matchup. And if he gets in the end zone, you're probably going to be ecstatic that you played him. And even if not, he'll probably be solid. So I would try to get him in your lineup if you could. All right, now we're going to move on to wide receiver. I have a little bit of a duo here. I said I like Geno Smith in that matchup against the Raiders, and he's got to throw it to someone. So DK Metcalf is the first guy we're going to talk about for the Seattle Seahawks. He has been really great for fantasy. I drafted him in a couple leagues and he's been a great value. Obviously, he's not like a tier 1 Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson type of play, but most weeks he's going to offer you decent yardage or get in the end zone. So yeah, he's been solid and I see no reason to go away from him. This week, I think he's, a borderline, maybe not a wide receiver 1, but a solid wide receiver 2 play. And same thing with Tyler Lockett, who also has surprisingly been great for fantasy. I think when Russell Wilson left and Geno took over as a starter, we thought these guys would kind of, slow down, but Geno has been awesome. You can look at his points over the course of the season in half PPR. Most weeks he's in double digits outside of 3 weeks. So in week 12 against the Raiders, I think he could have a big play. He might get in the end zone, but regardless, I think he'll find a way to at least put up double-digit points, and I like him as a nice, solid wide receiver 2 start. All right, now we're going to talk about Amari Cooper, who honestly, I feel like he's a little bit slept on this year, just because we didn't really expect a lot with Jacoby Brissett being the quarterback, but he's been amazing. He's had his ups and downs, but long story short, he's been a lot better at home than he has on the road. For whatever reason, I think it's just a fluke. Except for week 11, it was technically a road game, but it was actually a neutral site because even though it was at Buffalo, that game did get moved to Detroit, I believe it was. So Buffalo didn't really have a home field advantage, and he had a huge game, wide receiver 2 on the week, over 27 points. So I'm not trying to read too much into the road home splits, but I think in week 12 against Tampa Bay, this game could have a few more points than you might expect, because I think Tampa Bay will score, and Cleveland, their offense is not bad. Like they can put up a decent amount of points on any given week. Obviously, they're not the Chiefs, but they're not, this team that just can't move the ball like the Jets with Zach Wilson. You know what I'm talking about? Like they're a competent offense, and Amari Cooper has been great this year. So I think you could start him in any given week. He has the potential to blow up. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4 games around 20 points. One of them with 27. So I think I think you kind of have to put him in that lineup just because he's at home. I think he's a safe bet for production, and he does have that explosive game ability. My final wide receiver start of the week is Terry McLaurin of the Washington Commanders. So I loved Terry early in his career, but it seemed like his quarterback play was going to limit him, and it was just going to be one of those cases, kind of like DJ Moore, where it's like, I guess he's never going to reach his full potential. But with Taylor Heineke, he's been balling out lately. I mean, if you just look at his production in half PPR the last few weeks, most weeks you're happy. I mean, he had an 8.1 and a 7.6, but 55, 56 yards, that happens. And even in those games, he saw 9 and 7 targets. So that's kind of all you can hope for. Most wide receivers are gonna have their down weeks. It's just the nature of the position. But in week 12, he gets the Atlanta Falcons. It's a great matchup. So I think Terry McLaurin he's reaching the point where he's a borderline must start in the right matchup with Taylor Heineke. So unless you have like this, wide receiver core that is just top 5 options all around, you're probably going to be wanting to start Terry McLaurin in week 12. All right, now we're going to move on to tight end. Like I said, on my little notes on my phone, I can even show you right here. Here, focus. Is it going to be backwards? I can't tell. I don't know how well you can see, but it says Knox, Schultz, Hawk, Everett, and Foster Moreau. So I was going to say Schultz and TJ Hockenson, but they already played on Thanksgiving and they both went off. So I'm a little bit annoyed, but I still have a couple tight end starts of the week to talk about. And I'm just going to attack the 2 best matchups in all of fantasy for tight ends. So one of those great matchups is the Arizona Cardinals. And this week they get to take on Gerald Everett of the LA Chargers. He's been up and down for fantasy. With those other weapons coming back, he might not see a ton of volume, but he doesn't need to see 10 targets against this defense. I think he's a safe bet for at least okay production. He might get in the end zone, and at tight end, you don't need a lot of production to be a top option. So I would play him unless you already played Schultz or Hockenson, or you got like a Kelsey type of guy. I think he's a nice solid play. And then we're also going to attack the Seattle Seahawks defense, which has also been dreadful against tight ends. Foster Moreau is filling in for an injured Darren Waller for the Raiders, and they get the Seattle Seahawks. So it's not a play that I'm super excited about, especially since I couldn't use those other few guys as starts of the week because they already played on Thanksgiving. But he is probably a low tight end 1 just because tight end is disgusting. And it's a great matchup. So he should see solid volume. I'm not jumping out of my chair to play him, but if you need a streamer, I think Foster Moreau could be your guy. All right, that's going to do it for my starts of the week for week 12. If you made it this far, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. But now we are going to quickly recap our starts of the week for week 11, just to look back and see what went well and what did not go so well. So a quarterback for week 11, I had Justin Fields as a start of the week. I kind of said that I expected him to come down to earth a little bit just because of how I expected the game to go. And long story short, he was still a good start, but he didn't have like a 40-point performance. So I think we kind of nailed that one. Another start of the week last week was Daniel Jones in a great matchup against the Lions. He was the quarterback 5, about 25 fantasy points right there. And then Russell Wilson, I thought you could stream him against that Raiders defense, but that Broncos offense is just dreadful. And he was definitely a bust. So overall, I'm pretty happy with our calls. I took a chance on Russell Wilson, and it just didn't work. But you know what? It is what it is. I will never make that mistake again. So last week in a tougher matchup, I said you could start Rhamondre Stevenson. He was a running back 2. he had 11.2 points in half PPR, so we'll take that. Wasn't really a game or a game-winning type of performance, but we'll live with that. But someone who did have a great game start of the week, David Montgomery of the Bears against the Falcons. He had almost 20 points in half PPR, so we definitely nailed that one. And then Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson were my kind of dynamic duo starts of the week against the Texans. Robinson only 5.7, but then Antonio Gibson 11.8, a top 15 play at the position. Now we can move on to our wide receiver starts of the week from week 11. So one of my worst calls was Kadarius Toney. I believe he didn't have a catch, if I am not mistaken. I will go down a little bit here. I believe nothing happened. Yep. I think he left early with an injury. He saw one target, but I don't remember really what happened, but it was a bad call. It just didn't work out. One that worked out a little bit better, but not great, was Courtland Sutton. Double-digit points, borderline wide receiver 2. So he's getting to the point where he's not really doing it for fantasy, but he's someone in the right matchup you could probably play, like against the Raiders. If he's going to get about 10 points, you can use him in a pinch. And then Gabe Davis, very disappointing. 9.3 points. It is what it is. So at wide receiver, we kind of fell flat on our face, but that's fine. We live with that. But let's get back to the positives here. George Kittle was my tight end start of the week. He had 22 points in fantasy. The only person that scored more than him was Travis Kelce, who is an auto start every week. Other than Kittle, Dulcich was a start of the week. Okay. 5 points. Not really a good call. Almost a tight end 1, just with 5 points. That's kind of psychotic. The line was not high. You needed 6.1 to be top 12. That is tight end for you. And of course, I made Dalton Schultz a start of the week last week when he had 3.7 points and not in time for this week where the dude had, 2 touchdowns? So it is what it is. Same thing with TJ Hockenson. He was a start of the week last week for me, only 5.9. And then I was going to make him a start of the week this week. And he goes out there and has a great week. So, you know what? We're going to cry and we're going to move on. But that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Talk to you guys later. Peace out.